My family laughed when I walked into my sister's wedding alone. My father shouted across the ballroom. He couldn't even find a date before shoving me into the fountain. Hundreds of guests clapped like it was part of the entertainment. The water stung my eyes. My suit clung to me like shame, but I stood up, slicked my hair back, and smiled. I said, "Clear and cold. Remember this moment." They laughed harder. They thought I was broken. 15 minutes later, when my secret billionaire wife walked in, the room fell silent. Faces drained, glasses froze midair. And for the first time in my life, they realized the one they had mocked was never the fool. I'm Ethan, and this is my story. But before I share it with you, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments or let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far my story can reach. Sometimes even the smallest connection reminds me I'm not alone. Thank you. And now let me tell you everything. And if my story speaks to you, please consider subscribing. Every new subscriber reminds me that even in moments of betrayal and humiliation, there are people out there who care enough to listen. The July heat clung to Fort Lauderdale like a second skin the night I walked into my sister's wedding. The Ritz-Carlton Fort Lauderdale Grand Ballroom pulsed with neon reflections from the fountain in the courtyard. Purple and blue rippling across marble floors. The scent of champagne and salt water mixed with perfume so thick it felt like armor. I adjusted the black Calvin Klein suit that clung too tightly in the humidity. The Rolex date. Just on my wrist catching the light, one of the few things that tethered me to a world outside this room. I came alone. That in this family was a sin greater than theft. I was led to table 19, tucked against the far wall where distant relatives and my mother's old acquaintances murmured about things I wasn't meant to hear. Harper's eyes flicked to my suit and curled in a smile. "Discount rack," she said, her voice carrying. Logan raised his glass, asking loudly if I still pushed papers for the government, as if my life was a minor clerical note in his story. Laughter spread, the kind that travels like a fever. Everyone eager to join before they miss the moment. When my father took the microphone, I knew the tone before he spoke. Richard Cole had always known how to hold a room twisting words until applause followed him. He praised Lena, the daughter who could do no wrong, the jewel of the family. Then, with the perfect pause, he turned toward me. "And this one." His voice boomed, cutting through the music. He couldn't even find a date. The laughter returned sharper this time, feeding on humiliation like wine. Before I could move, his hand shoved hard against my chest. My body lurched backward, the fountain swallowing me whole. Cold water rushed over my headsuit fabric, sucking against my skin. Hair plastered to my face. For a second, the noise vanished, replaced by the roar of water in my ears. Then sound snapped back. Cheers clap. Someone yelling wet t-shirt contest. Flash bulbs popped like fireworks. What should have been outrage became entertainment. I pushed up through the water, slicking my hair back, letting every eye fix on me. My heart hammered, but my voice was steady. "Remember this moment." I didn't shout. I didn't need to. The words sliced through the laughter sharp enough that even Richard Cole faltered. A few guests stilled, caught between shame and curiosity. Most laughed louder. They thought I was broken. I stepped out of the fountain shoes, sloshing on the marble, leaving dark stains across the carpet. Stains that spread like veins, like a wound bleeding under crystal chandeliers. I didn't bother to dry myself. I walked past my father's smirk, past my mother's carefully neutral face, and out into the humid night. On the terrace, the salt-heavy breeze hit my skin. My phone vibrated once in my pocket. I typed a coded message to Tyler, the only one who needed to know Plan B. Down below at the valet line, I caught the low growl of an engine and the flash of headlights sweeping across glass. A Rolls-Royce had pulled up. The concierge spoke into his radio the word clear, even from where I stood, aegis. My pulse steadied enough. Long before that night, the script had been written. I grew up on Las Olas Isles, where mansions glittered like trophies, and the lives inside were curated for lenses. To outsiders, we were Fort Lauderdale's golden family. Inside, we were a funhouse mirror, distorted, cruel, convincing each other. The reflections were real. At 9 years old, I stood in the glass-walled living room, my mother Margaret Cole's hands pressing my shoulders. "Stand up straight. No one respects a sloucher." She adjusted my posture like I was one of her charity gala centerpieces. In the same moment, Lena twirled through the doorway, and applause followed her like gravity. By 16, I stopped expecting my name to matter. That birthday came and went unnoticed. Richard raised a toast that night, not for me, but for Lena's invitation to perform at an arts festival. My cake sat untouched in the corner, its candles unlit. I learned then how to fold in on myself to turn silence into armor. Even my greatest victories were rewritten as footnotes. At my high school graduation, I stood as valedictorian. My father interrupted my speech with a booming laugh, calling my success useless memorization. The audience laughed with him, and I saw my achievement collapse in their eyes. That was when I started watching people instead of trying to reach them, memorizing patterns like evidence at a crime scene. Years later, while searching through old files in the locked cabinet of my childhood home, I found proof that the cruelty hadn't been accidental. Tucked between tax records and gala invitations was a draft titled Family Reputation Strategy. The language was clinical positioning requires a counterpoint. Lena, prodigy, artistic, golden Ethan, intellectual, but detached, rebellious, yet harmless. Reduce his presence in media coverage. It wasn't just neglect, it was policy. My role had been purchased, approved, and executed. I sat with the paper trembling in my hands, realizing that my life had been reduced to a foil. My mother had probably read and signed off. My father had funded it, and Lena had basked in the light cast by my shadow. The moments that cut deepest, the forgotten birthday, the ruined graduation, were line items on a corporate plan. The phrase, "reduce his presence," echoed in my head, and suddenly, table 19 at the wedding made sense. It wasn't coincidence. It was legacy. The same machine that minimized me at 16 was still operating at 31, and the firm that wrote those memos, still active, still billing my father's office. That discovery didn't crush me. It clarified me. I wasn't unloved by accident. I was diminished by design. And if something could be designed, it could be dismantled. That night at the fountain was not a slip. It was the system at work. I thought of the small seashell lockbox my mother kept hidden in her closet. I'd glimpsed it years ago, never opened it. Did it hold proof of her secret regard for me, or another tool of control? For the first time, I wanted to know. Standing at the balcony, dripping in the humid Fort Lauderdale night, I understood I wasn't just fighting for dignity. I was fighting a narrative written long before I could defend myself, and I would not play my role any longer. Glencoe, Georgia taught me how to breathe inside noise. In the windowless rooms where the air tastes like gun oil and coffee, I chose counterintelligence because it rewards discipline over spectacle. You learn to read the room without being seen, to catch the one thread that doesn't belong, and follow it until the whole fabric shows its seams. I wasn't pushing papers. I was learning the language of quiet power patterns, timelines, anomalies, until they felt as familiar as my own pulse. By 29, I was running a multinational operation targeting a technology siphon in Asia, the kind that burrows through vendor chains and conference circuits, harvesting secrets one handshake at a time. Success doesn't look like fireworks in my line of work. It looks like silence returning to a channel that used to hum. I met Olivia Reed in the Austin tech scene under lights too bright for anyone's good. She was on stage speaking about zero-trust architecture with the relaxed precision of someone who actually builds what the rest of the room only brands. Aegis Cybersecurity had a reputation for landing impossible government contracts and keeping them out of headlines. After her talk, I asked one question about telemetry gaps in legacy endpoints. She held my gaze for half a beat longer than necessary, then answered like we were the only two people in the hall. That's how it started. Clean, unhurried, two professionals comparing notes and finding the same rhythm. We kept it off the grid from day one. 20 months of dinners in quiet places, morning runs before dawn, small jokes traded over encrypted messages. There were rules neither of us had to write down. No photos, no public displays that could be reverse searched. In crowds, we moved like colleagues. In solitude, we moved like a promise. When we decided to marry, we did it in Sonoma with only 3 witnesses, Tyler from my team and Emily, her sister, who cried into a linen napkin and then handed us a pen. The vows were short. No string quartet, no choreographed first dance, just a porch, a soft wind, and words that felt like a door finally opening. Enough. Not excessive. True. Not pretty. True. Not secrecy, wasn't shame. It was safety. My work paints a target on your back, and hers paints it on your bank accounts. The more public we became, the more data we offered to people who know how to use it. We built redundancies, like other couples build playlists, code phrases for extraction. 3 physical safes, one in our Las Olas Boulevard apartment, one at Aegis holding the marriage certificate, and a slim folder of emergency protocols. Rings off in public unless the risk model said otherwise. If anyone ever forced a narrative on us, we would have our own to counter it. Dated, notarized, ready. The closer Lena's wedding drew, the more my personal life brushed against the edges of my professional one. In a routine screening connected to a procurement review, I found paperwork tying Derek Lawson's company to a secondary fund that held a minor stake in a network my team had flagged abroad. The link was nothing criminal by itself, but it was enough to trigger alarms. The file hopped to a different office on orders above my grade. A neat transfer stamped with the phrase, "I know too well." Conflict of interest. The message beneath the stamp was louder than any explanation. Stay away. Keep your head down. Let other hands hold this. Distance isn't difficult when you never had closeness to begin with, but it stung anyway. I wanted to walk into my sister's celebration as a brother, not a risk to be mitigated. I wanted my mother to ask real questions and not about lighting or linen. A week before the wedding, Aegis's open source team pinged me with chatter that didn't fit the usual party noise mentions of a moment planned for a family member who takes himself too seriously. The language rire of performance. We kicked our contingency live. Plan B meant minimal personnel positioned at a distant secure transport on call and a comms tree ready to cut oxygen to any lie that might spread faster than the truth. I told no one in my family because there was nothing to tell them they would hear. I didn't need their approval. I needed a clean exit. One night at the range, after an hour of drills, I told Olivia a truth that sat like gravel in my chest. They built a world where I only exist as a comparison. I said, palms still stinging. I don't think there's anything I could do that would be enough. She took the ear protection off my head and held my face like she was centering a lens. Your value doesn't reference them, she said. It references you. It sounds simple, like something embroidered on a pillow. It felt like oxygen. I carried that sentence into the weeks that followed the way I carry a sidearm not to wave around, but to have when the room changes. We flew to Fort Lauderdale 2 days before the ceremony. I went to Las Olas Isles alone, a test of how much I could stand without giving anything away. My mother met me in the foyer, eyes sweeping my hands before settling on a magazine on the console. Look at this ring, she said, tapping a spread from a celebrity wedding. That's how you make a statement. She didn't look at my fingers. She didn't see what I chose not to show. Some truths are not for people who only value them when cameras are pointed. I left with a smile that never reached my eyes and a decision that felt like a locked door sliding into place. Too soon for them, not too soon for me. By the time the fountain swallowed me, our systems were already humming. The emails authorizing Plan B were time-stamped. The certificate sat in 3 steel boxes. The event logs were archived. There's a comfort in knowing you've done the quiet work when someone else insists on noise. It lets you stand up, dripping breathe, and say the line that stops your life from repeating itself. The ballroom looked engineered to forgive mistakes. Light so flattering it erased edges. Music mixed to keep people moving instead of thinking. Table 19 was almost under the exit sign, a small detail that told me exactly how much visibility I was meant to have. Harper clocked me first, eyes sliding over my suit like she was appraising a prop. "Nice," she said loud enough for 3 tables to hear. "Outlet special." I smiled and let the comment drift. Brandon leaned across Lena, telling her he was relieved I showed, as if my absence would have spoiled a pageant. I kept my hands flat on the tablecloth and counted heartbeats until the urge to answer passed. Logan prefers volume to argument. Still filing forms for the feds, he asked toward the ceiling, performing for people who pretend to hate gossip and live on it. Laughter flared quick and cheap. The pattern was familiar. One jab to start the rhythm, another to test the boundaries, then a chorus to turn it into sport. Margaret arrived to deliver the finishing touch, a glance up and down with the practiced precision of a stylist. "Black makes you look washed out," she said. "You should have asked me." The tone carried the same message it always had. "Your instincts are wrong. Your choices need approval. Your place is where we assign it." I didn't rise. I watched. Collectives give themselves away if you let them run. Heads angled the same way when I spoke. Laughter hit the same beat no matter the joke, and the jokes always landed on me. Orchestration shines through repetition. I saw the seams. I also saw the exit. My phone buzzed a short-coded vibration. Tyler Convoy, within 1 mile. I inhaled slowly, letting my nervous system take the cue. This would end soon, one way or another. I stood and started toward the courtyard, needing air. As I passed the service alcove, Richard's voice cut through the hum low and clipped on a concierge line. "Keep him near the fountain," he said. "I want everyone to see." It took nothing out of me to keep walking. You react and you feed the machine. You observe and you decide when to unplug it. Back near table 19, a woman with a press badge tucked beneath a scarf angled her phone high, the telltale posture of a social reporter. She wasn't with our approved vendors. I recognized none of the logos on her equipment. When the speeches started, she went live. I could read it in the way she began narrating under her breath, the way her hand steadied. My family thought they were directing theater. They had forgotten that theater has an audience, and audiences now carry broadcast towers in their hands. Richard took the microphone, and everything unfolded the way it always does, until it didn't. Compliments for Lena. A crescendo shaped like love. Then the turn, the line designed to be repeated later over drinks. I couldn't even find a date. The shove-cold applause. The reporter's lens didn't blink. Neither did I when I stood. I let the water stream from my cuffs and spoke the sentence I had decided on an hour earlier and 6 years ago. Remember this moment, not because I needed revenge, because pattern recognition without action becomes complicity. Laughter rose, then rippled uncertain. At the edge of the courtyard, security hesitated. Someone had told them to stay back because we were VIPs having fun. That phrase tastes like metal. Fun for whom, fun at what cost? The reporter's feed climbed in viewers. I could see the numbers spiking in the reflection on a guest's sunglasses. Somewhere inside the hotel, the concierge repeated a name into his radio aegis. I didn't turn toward the entrance. I didn't need to. I already knew the timing. Margaret's mouth was a thin line. Lena stood very still, bouquet trembling a fraction, the first crack in a surface that had never learned how to flex. Logan looked annoyed the bit had ended too quickly. Harper checked whether her laugh looked good on camera. My father adjusted his cufflinks, the tell he always gives before he doubles down. "Just a joke," he said to no one and to everyone. The reporter caught it. The microphone at the DJ booth caught it. The MC's pack caught it too. The same pack that had captured his other line word for word. I walked back toward the ballroom, water darkening the carpet with a trail no one could deny. The stains fanned out, soaking into the pattern, proof that something had happened here that would not be invisible later. As the doors opened, headlights swung past the glass and stitched white across the ceiling. The hum in my pocket vibrated again. 3 pulses this time. The all clear that the car was on the curb. I didn't speed up. I didn't look triumphant. I didn't look broken. I looked like a man who finally stopped asking a room to see what it refused to see. There is a second after humiliation when you decide who you are. You can agree with the verdict and spend the next decade appealing it, or you can set it down and walk forward. I chose forward. When I lifted my eyes, I saw the reflection of the Rolls-Royce's grille cut a clean line through the glass. Behind me, the phone held high kept filming the angle. Steady, the audio cry perfect. Ahead of me, the future opened like a door I had quietly unlocked weeks ago. I stepped through warm air and the smell of salt and gasoline, and for the first time that night my heartbeat felt like it belonged to me. The courtyard lights bent into streaks as the Rolls-Royce pulled to the curb. Security moved first, parting the crowd with practiced efficiency, and then she stepped out. Olivia wore a wine-red gown that caught the light like fire. The sound of camera shutters clicked in waves. The noise of a room suddenly reminded that it was watching a spectacle none of them had expected. My wife walked as if she had rehearsed this moment her whole life, though I knew neither of us ever planned to use it. She didn't wait to be asked. "I am Olivia Reed," she said, her voice pitched so it carried without strain. "I have been Ethan Cole's wife for 4 years." The chatter rolled like thunder through the crowd. Faces that had been painted with condescension twisted into disbelief. Tyler appeared behind her dark suit, pressed, speaking with the authority of someone who didn't need to shout. "Director Cole," he said, nodding toward me. The title echoed across marble and glass. A few guests fumbled for their phones, fingers flying as they searched her name. Within seconds, they saw what I already knew. Billionaire founder, security magnate. A net worth that dwarfed the chandeliers above us. Richard's voice cracked the tension. "What kind of joke is this?" he demanded, scanning the room for anyone who would laugh with him. None did. Margaret's skin drained of color, lips parted with nothing to say. Lena stood frozen bouquet, trembling in her hands. For once, their performance faltered. Olivia turned toward my father, gaze unblinking. "I saw you push him into the fountain. If he hadn't stopped security, the consequences would have been immediate." It was a warning wrapped as observation, the kind only someone with real reach can deliver. Then the ripple began. Screens lit up not just in the ballroom, but far beyond. An old email from the family's PR firm surfaced online, lines highlighted in cruel detail, "Discredit Ethan Cole." To elevate Lena. The leak spread alongside the live stream, already trending, the narrative flipping in real time. What had been a private humiliation was becoming a public reckoning. People craned to see their phones, whispering, trading updates mid-ceremony. The laughter that once sustained my family curdled into silence. In the corner, Derek Lawson shifted uncomfortably as someone near him muttered about a questionable investment fund linked to his company. His eyes darted, searching for reassurance that never came. I watched him swallow, shoulders tightening. He was not the focus tonight, but the fire had started to crawl closer. The room smelled of orchids and panic. I stood beside Olivia, not triumphant, but steady. Relief washed through me, not because I had won, but because the truth had finally stepped into the light without me begging it to. Still, I knew what fire could do once it caught wind. The same crowd that turned against my family could turn on her if the storm needed another victim. That knowledge kept my spine straight. Security guided us out as the flashbulbs followed. Engines spun up on the rooftop pad, the helicopter's blades slicing the humid Fort Lauderdale air. From above, I saw the ballroom shrinking a hive of frantic motion and raised screens. Down there, a reputation was unraveling thread by thread. Beside me, Olivia's hand was warm, her eyes unreadable. We were leaving behind the illusion of control my family had built. Above the city, lights glittered like 1,000 watching eyes. I knew the battle had only shifted terrain. Morning light spilled across the penthouse windows on Las Olas Boulevard, bouncing against glass and chrome. Every screen in the room glowed with the same clip. My father shoved the splash, my voice rising steady from the water. The hashtag spread across Fort Lauderdale faster than the humidity. News anchors repeated the phrase with the same tone they once reserved for scandal. The camera caught everything my family thought it owned. At the same time, headlines split. One set condemned Richard, calling the shove what it was, assault. Another, fueled by his new PR team, painted me as the manipulator, the son who married money to cover failure. The stories ran side by side, truth and fabrication elbowing for space. Olivia scrolled through feeds, jaw tight but silent. I had seen her fight in boardrooms and come away victorious. This wasn't her battle to lead, but she watched the terrain anyway. The call came from Arlington, Virginia, just after noon. My division chief's voice was clipped. "Careful. We need you to step back from current operations until this calms." He said the visibility compromises protocols. I understood the words for what they meant. Not punishment, not yet, but a reminder that my family's chaos could spill into the work that mattered. I told him I would comply, though inside my chest burned. Years of work, flawless records, and the price was being someone's son. Las Olas Isles, meanwhile, buzzed with its own activity. Richard convened his lawyers and spun strategies like nets tightening around narratives that no longer held. I knew his moves before he made them. Discredit, delay, distract. But the leaks kept coming. A contract surfaced showing he had used client funds to bankroll campaigns that polished Lena while painting me as the blemish. The legal implications began to shadow his swagger. Late afternoon, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months. Margaret's voice wavered at the edges. "Your father was wrong," she said, breath hitching. "But you were cruel to let this all go public." Her words carried both accusation and surrender. A woman balanced between loyalty and survival. I didn't answer her accusation. Some things don't deserve answers. I only listened, hearing her fear like static across the line. Lena chose a different path. She sent me an email, her anger carefully punctuated. "You ruined my day," she wrote. "I worked for years for this moment and you took it away." My reply was 2 sentences. I didn't push anyone into a fountain. That was not my choice. After I pressed send, I felt neither satisfaction nor regret, only the clarity of putting the truth where it belonged. The evening carried one more crack. Anna Lawson reached out through a secure channel I hadn't expected her to know. "Your family is unraveling," she wrote. "But Derek is not as clean as he pretends. I have files you need to see." Her words weren't dramatic. They were steady typed with the weight of someone tired of being ignored. I stared at the message for a long time, the intracoastal waterway skyline reflected in the glass before me. The choice pressed in. Step back entirely and salvage what career I could, or lean in and expose more than just family secrets. The air tasted metallic, the kind that comes before storms. I stood at the window, city lights flickering like signals I couldn't quite decode. My phone buzzed again, a single line glowing on the screen. "Meet me at dawn." I kept my eyes on the water below, the tide shifting against the seawall. The reflection looking back at me wasn't the boy from Las Olas Isles anymore. It was someone who knew the cost of silence and who had already chosen not to pay it again. The air inside the small conference hall was heavier than the Fort Lauderdale night outside. Reporters crammed shoulder-to-shoulder lights fixed so hot they made the room smell faintly of sweat and perfume. My family had called this press conference to correct misunderstandings, but every detail screamed desperation. The same hotel where they had laughed at me now served as their courtroom. I sat with Olivia beside me, calm and composed, while Richard, Margaret, Lena, and their lawyer filled the opposite row. Richard took the microphone first. His smile looked like something drawn on glass, fragile, ready to shatter. This was a family misunderstanding, he began. His voice tried for command but trembled under the weight of every camera trained on him. He wanted to reduce humiliation into comedy, to file it down into something small enough to dismiss. I didn't wait for him to finish. I placed my phone on the table, pressed play, and let the sound of water crashing against marble fill the room. The image projected onto the screen showed Richard's hand hitting my chest. The shove, the splash, the laughter. The sound of clapping turned suddenly monstrous when replayed in silence. The crowd went still. You could hear the breath catch in Margaret's throat. She sat rigid, her hands twisted together until the knuckles whitened. Lena bit her lip until it drew color. I saw her eyes flicker not to me but inward, as if she was replaying every moment she had chosen silence over truth. For the first time, the performance cracked. Olivia leaned forward, her voice steady but restrained. I am his wife. He is not what you've been told. She didn't flood the room with her own power. She gave me the center. The cameras swung back to me, waiting. Then a reporter raised a folder. Pages fluttered like a judge's gavel striking wood. We've obtained documents from Coleman Strategies, he said, showing funds diverted to a PR campaign designed to damage your own son's reputation. My father's signature glared up from the page, bold and undeniable. The cameras exploded with flashes, the room alive with voices calling out questions. Richard's smile cracked into a grimace. From the back, a voice rose. Anna Lawson standing tall with a printout in her hand. And here she said, "Our emails between Lawson Capital and Coleman Strategies. One line in particular makes sure Ethan does not overshadow Lena during the wedding." Gasps rolled through the hall. My father turned pale. Margaret's shoulders shook with small sobs, and Derek Lawson shifted in his seat, suddenly implicated in a scheme too large to deny. Then another figure entered, the weight of his presence silencing the room. My former division chief from the FBI, a man known for measured words, stepped up to the microphones. Director Cole retains full trust from this agency, he announced. He continues to serve with distinction, and we stand behind him. The effect was immediate. The last narrative they had tried to hold, that I was a failed son hiding behind my wife's fortune, collapsed under the authority of fact. I looked across at my father, who stared at me with eyes that had once been my compass and had now become nothing more than a warning. Enough, I said, my voice calm, steady, certain. I don't need this family's version of reputation. I only need the truth to stand. Richard slammed a folder down, papers scattering like defeated feathers. His face was drained of its usual confidence, his hands shaking. Margaret's tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. And Lena. Lena rose from her chair, voice breaking but clear. He is not a failure. The words cut through the static of cameras and whispers. For the first time in my life, my sister's voice carried a note of truth that belonged only to her. The room no longer belonged to them. The script they had written burned in front of everyone, and for the first time, I wasn't the actor they were. 8 months later, the storm had settled into a quieter rhythm. At our home in Coral Ridge, the lights were warm music, soft the scent of food and laughter drifting between rooms. This wasn't a gala or a press conference or a carefully staged photo op. It was a gathering of people who wanted to be there. Emily leaned against the counter, telling a story that made Tyler laugh so hard he spilled his drink. Grace from the bureau nodded along, the rare kind of colleague who becomes a friend. Anna Lawson sat by the window, finally relaxed enough to smile without hesitation. I raised my glass not to declare victory, but to offer gratitude. To the people who see me clearly, I said, and to the ones who remind me that family is chosen by love, not obligation. The clink of glasses answered back, light and genuine. Then my mother stood from the corner. She walked with hesitation, clutching a small box I recognized instantly. She placed it in my hands, the seashell-shaped lock cool against my palm. "I kept these," she whispered. Inside lay my valedictorian medal, the certificate from the programming contest, and a letter I had written her when I was 10. The ink was faded, but my words were still there. Childish lines about wanting her to be proud. Margaret's voice shook. I was proud. I was just too silent for too long. It wasn't redemption, but it was a crack in the wall she had built, and I accepted it for what it was. Late imperfect, but real. Lena approached next. No flowers in her hand this time. No cameras on her face. I liked being the favorite, she admitted quietly. It was easier than seeing the truth. But I know now you were the one carrying the harder weight. She looked away, shame and honesty wrestling inside her. It was not forgiveness. It was a beginning. Olivia's hand slipped into mine, grounding me. She leaned close enough for only me to hear. "Whatever you choose with them," she murmured, "I'm here." Her words reminded me that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stays. Later that night, as guests began to leave, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Richard. "We need to talk about recent misunderstandings," the email read. No apology, just a fumbling attempt at reclamation. I didn't type a reply. I smiled instead because for once I wasn't compelled to answer. Silence was my choice now, not theirs. I stepped out onto the balcony with Olivia, the intracoastal waterway stretching silver under the moonlight. The air smelled of salt and jasmine. For years I had been waiting for them to see me, waiting for their recognition like it was oxygen. But peace didn't come from their eyes. It came from my own decision to stop asking. "I'm okay," I said softly. Then I looked at her, felt her fingers squeeze mine, and corrected myself. "More than okay." The water shimmered below us, the city alive but no longer heavy. I had walked into a wedding alone, shoved into a fountain, mocked by the people meant to protect me. And now, months later, I stood upright, steady, surrounded by those who had chosen me not because of duty or blood, but because of truth. Family, I realized, isn't written in scripts or contracts or stage toasts. It is the people who see you as you are and stay anyway. That was the story I carried forward, the only one I needed. In the end, what stayed with me wasn't the laughter, the fountain, or even the headlines. It was the quiet realization that worth isn't measured by the people who try to diminish you. It's measured by the strength to stand, to draw boundaries, and to let in only those who choose you with honesty. My story is not just mine. It's a reminder that healing begins when you stop asking for permission to exist. If this resonates with you, please subscribe. Every click tells me these words found someone who needed.